Chapter 10. Bruni did not know where he was being dragged to, but the fact that he had a bag over his head and his arms were tied gave him reason to suspect that it wasn't anywhere pleasant. Bruni? We don't know who Bruni is, do we, boys? I think this is a story about being on the infested side. At first, he had thought it was a practical joke played on him by the Hodboons, who lived 3 mounds over, and with whom Bruni had been engaged in a battle of prance for the last few months now. The most recent gag played on Bruni had involved a small rodent being released into his room, which in itself wouldn't have been so remarkable if the small rodent hadn't been on fire at the time. It was Bruni reckoned a fair response to his own clever and complex jape, involving ivy, sharpened sticks, a large hole, and a bag full of beetles. So when he woke up rudely from his standard all-day nap by a bag being placed over his head, he was certain it must have just been another revenge prank. "All right, lads, very funny," he said, as his arms were being tied. "But wasn't it my turn to play the joke?" That was when he got punched in the head for the first time. Even through a minor concussion, he could tell that these 2 assailants were very big. They clearly weren't Hodboons like him, because Hodboons were a short, spindle-limbed race, though what they lacked in physical stature they made up for in length of ears, crookedness of teeth, greenness of skin, and general mischief. "Stay still, you ugly little thud, or I'll snap your arms off and use them to break your legs," one of the assailants roared at Bruni. Finally, Bruni found some energy to struggle. "You calling me ugly?" exclaimed Bruni. "I can see your feet through the bottom of this bag. Do you mind me asking, are all of those warts yours, or did you borrow some just for this special occasion?" That was when he got punch number 2, and it knocked him cold out. When Bruni came to, he was being dragged up a slope. It was steep and brutal underfoot. Actually, brutal underfoot would have been a luxury to Bruni right then. He was being dragged along. It was brutal under his toes, under his shins, and under his knees. Worse than that was the stench in the air. It seeped through the canvas of the bag until he could feel it burning in his throat. He had heard about the intense smell from other travellers, or at least from those who claimed to have survived it. If you were to leave a bag of fish to rot inside a corpse stuffed already with rotten fish, that would be sweet perfume compared to the stench of this place, one traveller had insisted. "I burned every item of clothing I owned to get rid of its foulness, and even then it wasn't enough," whispered another. "In the end I had to shave off every fibre of my fur from my body, plucked every hair from my nostrils, pulled every lash from my eyes, to free myself of it. Yet even now, if the wind blows in a particular direction..." The air seemed to grow more putrid with every step Bruni's captor took, with every bump and scrape his body absorbed. He understood now where he was being taken. It was to a place of death, most probably his. Eventually the climb evened out. The ground became flat, hard stone. It was warmer, and echoes of his captor's footsteps told Bruni he was indoors. A door groaned open, and heat smacked Bruni hard. They stopped. Bruni was flung to the floor. As he pushed himself up, one of the kidnappers yanked the bag from his head. The Hodboon was briefly blinded by numerous fires, burning tall in huge cauldrons that lined the large stone room in front of him. The largest of them popped and cracked and leapt high towards the ceiling. His captors shuffled their hulking bodies away. Bruni was released. Now he could see that they were Fomorians, brutal, merciless giants, who were either very intelligent or spectacularly dumb, with nothing in between. He wasn't entirely sure which type was better to encounter. His eyes adjusted quickly, and he saw, stomping towards him from the far side of the room, a figure Bruni had dearly hoped he would never have to set eyes on. Uh-oh. Do you want to see what it is? Can I see the picture? See it? Gantrua's massive bulk turned away from Bruni, and when he spoke he turned his head only slightly towards him, just enough to reveal the curved edge of great fierce horns that sprouted from his forehead. The lines of the flames danced off armour that ran from his waist up to his jagged grill across his mouth. Even in the uncertain light, Bruni could see that it was made up of many individual teeth fixed to a metal rim. "Do you know who I am, Hodboon?" Gantrua's voice was so deep Bruni felt it quiver through the stone at his knees. "Yes, your greatness. The whole land trembles your very name." "Do you know why you're here?" Bruni did not, so he took a guess. "Is it the beetles?" "It was only a bag of them, your lordship, and no one was eating them at the time. If they were yours, I'm truly sorry. I was intending to sweep them up and return them, but you know how it is, your powerfulness. There were other things to do, you know what I mean?" "Quiet," commanded Gantrua, with an authority that terrified Bruni so effectively he briefly lost his balance. "I don't care about your pathetic thieving. If you had decided to steal from me, you would have already been struck down." Bruni's head drooped from exhaustion and humiliation. His body ached from the violent journey. His head hurt from trying to figure out why he was here in the first place. He lifted his head again to see that Gantrua was ignoring him now, and instead engaged in a conversation with a smaller, hooded figure in the shadows. Gantrua signalled to the other creature to wait, then turned fully and loomed over Bruni. In the flickering light, Bruni could make out the scars that marked Gantrua's skins, valleys sliced across his arms, rivers of wounds across his shoulders. "You were trained?" asked Gantrua. Bruni had not expected that question. We all were, your greatness, but it was a long time ago now, before the sky closed." "You had better search your memory for those lessons. The sky has not closed entirely." So the rumours are true, thought Bruni. There are still gateways to the promised land. There had been talk among the armies of this, but he had never heard it confirmed. It had been a long, long time since he had heard of anyone going through and coming back. "We are on the verge of a great invasion of the human world," continued Gantrua. "It must succeed or the way through could be locked for eternity, and we will be trapped forever in this place." He spat into the flames, shotting them into chaos. He composed himself again as the fire settled into its normal dance. "You, Hodboon, shall go to the promised land." "Oh, I'm flattered, your worship. Your lordship, or whatever it is I call you. Really, I am greatly honoured. But your masterfulness, I have not trained for many years. I fear I'll get captured as soon as I step through the gateway." Gantrua leaned forward so that the flames licked the metal guard at his chin. "I am counting on it." He stood back, acknowledging a whisper from the hooded figure, who was still lurking in the shadows. Then Gantrua addressed Bruni again. "The boy will be there. The boy." "The boy?" said Bruni. "Which boy?" "Do not act dumb, Hodboon. I know what they talk about beyond these walls. I know they talk about the boy. They wonder if it is true, if it is real. Well, he is real. You will meet him, and you will take with you two things for him. One, a message, the other, a gift. My guard will give you both." One of the Fomorians removed a pair of tongs from his belt and approached the cauldron. Ignoring its angry flames, the guard plunged his tongs into the fire and poured out a long, clear crystal, and he brought it over to Bruni. "The miners work day and night to find the meagre supply of these crystals," growled Gantrua. "Each has the power to open up a path between the worlds. We need to send one to the promised world, but it will only retain its power through a sacrifice. I suppose I should tell you that yours will be a noble one, but I doubt very much nobility would ever stoop to be an acquaintance of yours, so we'll just get on with it." Gantrua turned away to exit from the far side of the plinth, then paused mid-step. Which of your fingers is your least precious to you, Hobboon? They're all kind of useful to me, your superlativeness. I'll find it hard to choose. They all say that, said Lantrua, then disappeared off the far side of the plinth. The guard, holding the crystal, came closer. From his waist dangled a rather bloodied-looking pair of pliers. The settling Fomorian grabbed the Hobboon by one arm and pinned him to the ground. Bruni had held out for this long that he decided it was finally a good time to scream.